your host, Double Krown.
Hey, it's Double Krown. So, we've just had the Queen's speech. So here I've got a bill-by-bill summary of the Queen's speech. And the Queen's speech is basically where the government outlines legislation for the coming year, for the year ahead. So we're going to quickly browse through this and see what the government has planned for the coming year. So the first topic is, let's have a look. Let's see if I can scroll. Don't seem to be able to scroll. Right, is the Modern Transport Bill. And here we've got measures to encourage investment in driverless cars, electric cars, commercial space planes and drones. So this is this whole idea of basically discourage people from driving. So you're going to have to invest in one of these expensive, high technology cars. It's going to price most people out of driving. That's the only explanation that I can think of. They're discouraging people from driving, so they're trying to stop people getting from A to B. Just basic, just carrying out basic trips to the supermarket, to see your family, to see friends. You'll need one of these high technology this high technology car. So that does not look very promising. Okay, so the next one is this Neighbourhood Planning and Infrastructure Bill. So they've got pre-commencement planning conditions to be streamlined to speed up housing developments. And you can see there, like one of these complexes, this apartment block. And these are springing up everywhere, these apartment blocks, where, to have a flat, to have one of these apartments costs a fortune. And all you're getting is like a little box area, reduced living space. And I just wonder, are they knocking down houses to create this complex, these complexes, these blocks, these apartment blocks? Are they knocking down good housing to create these housing blocks so that you end up living in a very confined space, like some kind of battery chicken, living in a box room? So that, again, is not looking too good there. Okay, and then we have local growth and the jobs bill. A framework to be put in place to enable local authorities to retain 100% of business rates levied. That means local authorities will have more and more control over businesses. Already they can shut businesses down by... for example, reducing parking spaces, which means there's less customers, which means the business suffers. So already they have excessive power to be able to close businesses down. And now they've got an incentive that they're going to be able to retain 100% of all the business rates. So they're going to be getting all that money from businesses. And they're sort of in control. They can dictate terms, as it were. So again, I'm not sure if that's necessarily a good thing. Right, and then we have the NHS Overseas Visitors Charging Bill. So overseas migrants and visitors will be charged for NHS services they are not entitled to. So that means EU citizens will now have to pay. Tighter residency rules mean fewer visitors from the European Economic Area will be able to access free healthcare. Now, I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing, because, it means EU citizens will struggle to get treatment, or they'll have to pay. And really, once people are in the country, then they should be entitled to free healthcare. I know there's an issue about tax, and it means that taxpayers' money is being spent on EU migrants. But if that money isn't spent on EU migrants, who is that money going to be spent on? It's going to be spent possibly on things that we don't want it to be spent on. For example, bombs, or for example, the military. So in a way, I mean, I'd rather it was spent on healthcare, and I would rather people were allowed to access that healthcare. I don't see what the big problem is with that, and why people should not be able to access that freely. So this is just a bad rule. And of course, once they start clamping down and saying EU migrants are not allowed access, I mean, how long before citizens will not be allowed access to free healthcare? And this is going to lead to the gradual privatisation of the NHS. Okay, so we've got the Education for All bill. And this includes powers to convert underperforming schools in unviable local authorities to academies. A goal of making every school an academy, but no compulsion to do so. And you just wonder, is this the slow and gradual privatisation of schools and schooling? The next one goes on to say head teachers, not councils, are going to be responsible for school improvement. And you just wonder, should a head teacher, should a single person have that much power, that much responsibility for an entire school and be making all the decisions? And you think the council would be able to intervene occasionally, but so that is a worry. The next one is a new national funding formula for schools. So they're trying to bring mathematics into this, and how much money a school gets will be determined now by a mathematical formula. We've already seen these mathematical formulas applied. For example, we've got the Barnett formula, which determines how much funding Scotland gets, Wales gets, etc. This Barnett formula means that they get some additional benefits. But using this mathematical formula, it means that people don't negotiate. There's no human-to-human interaction anymore, discussion about needs and wants, etc. Once it's all done by a formula, you can't negotiate, you can't argue, you can't discuss. And that's a worrying trend, this use of formula to calculate how much the school is worth and how much you're worth. And then we have the Prison and Courts Reform Bill. So new reform prisons are going to be opened with an emphasis on training, rehabilitation and education. And I just wonder, there's going to be new prisons. I wonder, are they going to be re-education centres? And why do we need new prisons to be opened? Are there going to be more prisoners? You'll notice the emphasis here on training, rehabilitation and education. And I just wonder, could you stick the word brainwashing in there as well? So that is a worry. Okay, and now we have the Lifetime Savings Bill. There's going to be help to save, a help to save scheme announced in the budget to help those on low incomes build up a rainy day fund. So that means that people who are already struggling to get by on low incomes, they don't even want you to spend the little money that you've got. They want you to put it away, save it, and you can't afford to do that. And those in work but getting certain benefits who put aside £50 a month will see it matched by the state. So that means if you're struggling to get by, you can't afford to pay the rent, you can't afford to pay the mortgage, they want you to still put £50 that you can't afford aside, and they'll match that money. All that money will be matched and it'll be put into an account that you won't be able to access, and the little money that you did have, you won't be able to spend it. So that is actually quite a worrying trend, because this is targeting people on low incomes, people really who need to spend that money, the little income that they've got, on the things that they need, and not save it. But they're encouraging saving that money. I mean, money is not there to be saved. Money is there to be used, spent, and used for good purposes. Next, we have the Counter-Extremism and Safeguarding Bill, a new civil order regime to be introduced to restrict extremist activity. And what is extremist activity? Well, they will decide what that is. So they want to restrict activities, and they will decide what is extremist. New powers of intervention to tackle radicalization of children. So they're targeting the children. They don't want children to have unusual ideas. They want them all to conform. And of course, they're targeting unregulated education settings. Now, what on earth does that mean? That's a worry, because it's just totally undefined. Parenting, is that an unregulated education setting? That is a worry. So what does this all mean? Government to step in where councils fail to tackle extremism, and again, they haven't decided. They haven't defined what extremism is. So this is all very, very confusing. Ofcom to have power to regulate internet streamed material from outside the EU. Now that means if I want to listen to somebody like Alex Jones, who's in the United States, and I listen to InfoWars, are they now going to censor that material? In future, I might not be able to listen to Alex Jones or a lot of the alternative media which is coming from the United States. They want to block EU citizens accessing that information. So again, this goes into this whole brainwashing. They want to keep you from accessing the information that you need, and they want to keep you in this little bubble where you don't really know what's going on. That is a worry. Okay, and they're introducing a criminal finances bill, a new criminal offence making companies liable for stopping their staff facilitating tax evasion, changes to laws on the proceeds of crime to make it easier for the police and courts to recover criminal assets. So all the time they're increasing the police's powers and the court's powers, and they will be able to recover assets which don't belong to them, but they have decided, the police and the courts together will have decided whether those assets are criminal or not, and they will then steal those assets or claim they're recovering them. So again, that is worrying, because there's more and more powers going to the police and the courts. The suspicious activity reports regime to be refocused with an emphasis on tackling systemic money laundering. So again, money the focus here, and they're using money as a mechanism, money and assets as a mechanism to control people. Right, then we have the Investigatory Powers Bill, overhaul of laws governing how the state gathers and retains private communications or other forms of data to combat crime. Broadband and mobile phone providers will be compelled to hold a year's worth of communications data. So again, they're just storing more and more data on you, the individual. Communications, private communications, they're going to store all that information, and for what purpose, nobody knows. And they, of course, they say it's to combat crime, but these are just private communications, data on you browsing the internet or whatever, and they're going to hold a year's worth of information, so they're going to know all about you and everything about you. Yeah, and it goes on, a police and crime bill, closer collaboration between the emergency rescue services, etc. An overhaul of police complaints and disciplinary systems, a Bill of Rights to replace the Human Rights Act. So that is interesting and worth looking at in the future. And soft drinks industry levy, etc. So so that was a bill by bill summary of the Queen's speech. Thanks for listening. That was Double Krown. See you again soon. Bye for now.